Well, welcome back. This is Election 23, the Road to the Beehive, and at this point we have a chat with our political analyst. And I'd love to welcome back to us Tim McCready. Tim, welcome to the program once again. And how did you find my conversation with Teanau?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Great to be here. Look, I've got to say, Teanau was one of those politicians where I'd seen just a little bit of him and I'd read some stuff about him in the paper, but otherwise I couldn't have told you too much about him. And I think from that interview, to me, although he's only been in Parliament since the last election, he seemed like he's really up to speed and able to speak quite confidently on subjects as if he's a long-term politician. One thing I did want to say is that I've been really enjoying these long-form interviews where you get a chance to uncover a little bit of the personalities behind the names. I mean, he was wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt during that interview, so maybe trying to pick up a few votes from heavy metal fans that are out there.
Well, in fact, he referenced that a few times. I'm not sure it was within the interview or not, I can't recall, but saying, I might have picked up 3 more fans for Iron Maiden or something. He was a very relaxed character indeed. And of course responsible for a lot of portfolios. I mean, he's got about, I think, 13 or 14 listed on the Green Party website, including agriculture, biosecurity, education, research, science, local communities, rural communities, innovation, all sorts of things like that. He's got he sort of, what was the impression how he went across them, if you like?
Yeah, massive workload, right? Trying to come up to speed on all those portfolios. I think obviously he lives rurally, so the bulk of those portfolios that he has, the ones like rural communities, agriculture, for example, he clearly cares quite passionately about them. I did like when he spoke about some of those portfolios, and you could see the crossover between them, which was interesting. Like, he was passionate about rural communities that are impacted by poverty, and he spoke about schools in rural locations with his education hat on and the challenges that they have. But yeah, to your point, a lot of portfolios, you could really see that he's keen to get a lot more Green MPs in Parliament so he can kind of share out some of that workload, I think.
Yes, he did make reference to needing a few more people in the team to help share the load. That's right. Do you think he made a case for what the Green Party has achieved over the last, 3 years in his term? It's 6 years since they've been in the government bubble, if you like.
Yeah, it's hard for the Green Party, I think, because their supporters, their really core supporters, argue that the pace of change that they've achieved hasn't been fast enough, and the scale of what they're trying to do isn't big enough. But I think we do have to remember in the 2020 election, Labour, the Labour Party, was able to pull off what so many people thought was impossible in an MMP environment. They pulled off a majority, and so they didn't need the Green Party to form a government, a coalition government. But they did pull in James Shaw and Marama Davidson and give them ministerial portfolios outside of cabinet. And I think James Shaw in particular is considered to have been pretty successful in what he's done in climate change and the way that he's built consensus across Parliament. But as I say, they weren't essential to the government. And I think we saw earlier this year when Labour went through the books to make its savings, Grant Robertson cut over 200 million from the climate budget without even telling James Shaw that he did it. So I think it's right what Teanau said, that the party has done the best it can with the numbers that it got, or rather the numbers that Labour got at that last election.
I mean, it is a party with definite factions. I guess most parties are. They're either far left or not so far left, or centrist, or the other way as well. But there seems to be, I mean, as I mentioned with James Shaw, people seem to be after his job, not necessarily wanting to take his job, but wanting to move him on, which seems extraordinary to me.
Yeah, it's hard. This is the challenge of a party that's got, it's very environmental, but it's also got those social policies as well, right? And there's a real contrast between what people want, I think.
Now, we did ask him about the policies that the Green Party has to address poverty, and as you say, Teanau did bring that up quite frequently. He has a real concern in that area. Did you think he made a decent response?
I think it was a fairly decent response. I couldn't help but feel that he was really cleverly honing his message into the audience that he's talking to on your show. For example, he spoke about the Greens policy to implement rental controls and how that could benefit the rural community in particular. And he spoke about that income guarantee, $385 that the Green Party want to bring in. But I thought it was interesting that he didn't speak about the wealth tax itself, which is a cornerstone policy of the Greens, until you asked him how that income guarantee would be funded. And I think, he made the case for that well, but as I say, I think he was trying to target this message to the audience that's watching today.
Now, with polling seeming to be going the other way, the Greens are so tied to Labour, it looks like they could be out of the next government, because I don't think National's going to go there. In fact, the Greens have said they won't go with National, haven't they? But do you think they should or could be more willing to work with all sides of Parliament, like perhaps they do in Germany and their coalitions there, so they get to continue their work and have some sort of power?
Yeah, I think this comes up every election year, right? Why can't the Greens work with National? And I think a lot of people that I speak to say that that would be a great coalition outcome. But, as you say, Teanau and the Greens have consistently said that working with National isn't a possibility because they say that the gap between the two parties is just too great. But I did find it surprising in this conversation that Teanau said that, but then in the next breath, he said that the two parties in Parliament that are probably the closest together are the National Party and the Labour Party. And I think that is probably quite true, especially if you look at those dull debates between the two Chris's that we've had recently. So I don't know. I think if we end up with what looks like it could be the most far right-wing government, or what people are saying could be the most far right-wing government in history, I do wonder whether the Green Party might start to wonder whether they perhaps could work with National to help temper some of its political aspirations in future government. So I think it's a question that we should keep asking them.
And it probably won't be this time, I would suggest.
Not this time, no.
Hey, Tim, thank you so much for that. Appreciate it.
No problem. Good to talk to you.
And that's Election 23, Road to the Beehive. I'm Mark Leishman. Well, there are 2 more episodes in the series to go. Todd McClay, the National Party spokesperson on agriculture, and National Party leader Christopher Luxon. Look forward to your company then.
Brought to you by Sky Country Media, rural marketing specialists and producers of Country TV.